In this video, I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about the basics of booleans in Blender. So if you're a beginner, it's gonna be a fantastic video for you. Then I'm gonna show you some really cool tricks and tips on booleans. So if you're intermediate, you're gonna learn something useful as well. And at the end, I'm gonna show you how to get shit done if you're like me and you fucking hate wasting time. Let's go. Now, before we get to the juicy stuff, if you're a beginner or even intermediate, check our free course, which is called Jumpstart Hard Surface for Blender. It contains information on all the stuff, like UI, the tools, modeling, rendering, editing, etc. So basically gonna teach you all the foundations of hard surface in just a few hours. And like I said, the course is free. So check it out, link in the video description. You're welcome. So now before we get going with the Boolean stuff, you need to get a few things installed. First of all, you need to install a few add-ons that come with Blender, so don't panic, they're not paid add-ons. You're gonna be like, oh my god, he's using paid add-ons. Fucking hell. Anyway, so go here to Edit Preferences, Add-ons, and install Bool Tools, okay? Bool Tool. This one is very important. It's gonna bring Blender Vanilla from the Ice Age era a bit closer to Dark Ages, alright? So it's still painful, but not fucking unbearable, alright? We already have fire, stone walls, we invented the wheel, things are looking good, okay? So basically check this box here and save preferences, okay? Next one's gonna be copy modifier menu, copy attributes menu, so this one, alright? And then what you want is also this one, interface modifier tools, alright? It's gonna allow you to toggle and apply modifiers, really cool. So these three add-ons at least, okay, get them installed, right? So we're gonna be good to go. I'll actually also install loop tools because we will need it. So loop tools, all right. So install these four. I actually show you how to install other add-ons like Node Wrangler, etc. for the interface setup in this other video. So go ahead and check it. It's a really good video. Anyway, so save prefs and good to go, right? So let's get started. Now you got 4 different types of booleans in Blender. You got difference boolean, union, slash, and intersect. You also have an inset boolean, but this one is an absolute bitch to perform in vanilla Blender, and I'm not fucking doing it. I'm gonna show you a more civilized way of doing this, the way all intelligent people performing that boolean. You remember we installed Bool Tool add-on. This is gonna make our life super easy because the original way of booleaning in vanilla Blender is beyond fucking ridiculous. So let's add a cube, Shift A and add a cube, then Shift D and duplicate it somewhere here, okay? So now the way you boolean in Blender, you select the cutter first, then you select the cube you wanna cut, or object you wanna cut, and press Ctrl- for a difference boolean. Now you need to use numpad, and if you're gonna start whining in comments that you don't have a fucking keyboard with numpad, just go and get one, all right? And if you don't have one, really, you need to get your shit together, okay? But you can also go here to input and emulate numpad until you're gonna get yourself a proper keyboard, okay? All right, so that's the difference boolean. Now after I perform this boolean, you can see here that we have a modifier, boolean modifier. So when you go to this wrench, right, click on the object you are booleaning, because that's the one with the boolean on. You will see there's an active modifier running on the mesh. We're gonna be talking about modifiers in a minute once I'm gonna show you all the types of booleans, okay? So patience. So we're gonna go back to it, but you can see here clearly there's a difference boolean. Now watch this, I'm going to nuke that, right? And I'm going to select this again and this one, and I'm going to press Ctrl+. This is going to give me a union boolean, which means these two cubes are connected, okay? Again, it's a live boolean, so I can still remove it. Now next one's going to be slash boolean. So I'm slashing this cube, right? Kind of piece of this cube with this cutter. And you can see here it says intersect, but honestly, it's not really intersect. It's actually a slash boolean, all right? Intersect boolean is something else. So watch this. If I'm going to grab this cube and move it, okay, here on the x-axis, and shift D it here, and I'm going to remove this boolean from this cube, okay, and this one from here as well, and I'm going to perform a difference boolean, and I'm going to switch it to intersect. That is an intersect boolean, all right, which is basically two intersecting surfaces that are becoming a cutout, okay? So the intersection of both cubes, or both elements, gonna become a cutout. Now the reason why I told you that this one isn't a real intersection boolean is because it's kind of way of Blender of creating slash Bullion, okay? So let me explain. You can see here that this piece is an intersection between these two cubes, but technically it's actually a slash out of this main cube. So Blender, what it does, it creates an intersection Boolean on this cube, and here gonna create a difference Boolean. So Blender cuts out this piece from this cube and creates an intersection here, so it creates like a slash. So watch this. If I'm going to actually grab this cube and apply this Boolean, so I'm gonna click here and apply it, right? Don't worry about it. And then here apply it as well, okay? Then you will see that I have a bit kind of a cutout of this cube. That's why it's called slash Boolean. So you can only create it with a shortcut on the keyboard, Control slash. So again, get a proper keyboard, right? So that's the gist of Booleaning in Blender. Now let's get a bit deeper, okay? So you got this cube and we got this cube. So we're gonna select this one, shift select this one, Control minus, everything is peachy, right? Now let's talk about it. So this cube, first of all, you can see that it became a wire. Why? Bool tool does that, okay? It's a fantastic thing. Vanilla Blender doesn't do it. It just, you know, keeps a cube and you can't see shit. Now, this is really fantastic because now you can actually move it. It's a live modifier, so you're cutting live, right? You can move it and keep cutting, keep changing this cut. You can actually move an edge, so I can go here, grab this edge, and I can start moving the edge and changing the cut. By the way, if you're wondering what the hell this menu is, it's machine tools, it's a paid add-on because I can't fucking stand this vanilla bullshit. So, you know, normally you press tab and then 1, 2, 3 for, you know, edge, vert, edge, and face. I just use a point menu, which is super quick because tempo's fugitive, okay? I hate wasting fucking time, I told you. So now, the trick is that you can modify the cutter, that's the whole point, right? Modify the cutter to change the cut on this cube because this cut is live. It's a live modifier. You can see it in here, okay? It's a difference modifier. So technically, this modifier, this cutout here is an illusion, all right? If I go to edit mode, watch, it's a full cube. And people message us with this question all the time. Why my cube in edit mode doesn't, you know, have a cutout? Well, because it's a live modifier. If you're gonna apply that, which you can't do, by the way, in edit mode, right? This modifier is going to get applied and the cutout becomes reality, becomes a mesh. So now when I go to edit mode, you can actually see that cutout. Now you can see the real mesh being cut out, okay? When you apply the modifier. So as long as your modifier is live, you can adjust it, change it, tweak it. But when you go to edit mode, it disappears because it's an illusion. So now let's organize our scene a bit, okay? Here on the top, you can see collections, right? We have everything together. That's bullshit. What you want to do is you want to do what Box Cutter is doing, which is very intelligent. And Box Cutter is an add-on that basically is, it's the grandmaster of Booleans. That's how you should be performing Booleans. I'll show you later on what I mean. But anyway, let's get back to the dark ages. So now what you want to do is you want to select this cutter, okay? This cutter. So click on it, right? Select the cutter. And press M on the keyboard to create a new collection and name it cutters, right? Cutters, right? And automatically this cube's gonna jump, look, to a cutter collection. Now what you can do, you can press Shift 2 on the keyboard, right? To make this cutter disappear. And if you are emulating numpad and using top numbers for your cutters, right? You can't do that, which is why, again, get a proper fucking keyboard, okay? So if you press Shift 2, you can, you know, toggle the cutter collection. This is fantastic because let's say you have 20 booleans, like 15 booleans on the mesh. It's very confusing. You can toggle them instantly, very quickly, and each mesh, you know, is gonna have its own cutters. So it's really confusing, right? So this is a fantastic way of working, kind of keeping your scene clean, right? So I would really recommend doing that. Now, another thing you can do with cutters, you can array them, because cutters are just objects, right? So if I'm gonna go here, grab this cutter and make it really small, right? Now let's say move it somewhere here, okay? Make it smaller like this, all right? And move it somewhere here. And I'm going to cut this mesh again, so Control minus. I'll watch this, I can grab this one, right? Go to Modifiers and generate an array, right? And then I'm gonna have to move it slightly. Don't panic, your mesh is going to disappear because I'll tell you in a minute. So create an array here. So let's say count, I don't know, like let's say 3 of them and just increase the distance, right? You can see that you can, you know, create an array and modify your cutters in that way. You can mirror them as well. So you can mirror them across the mesh. You can do anything you want. You can rotate them, right? So all these operations you can perform to kind of adjust you know, the way you want to cut your model. So be creative. Now, the reason why the mesh disappeared is because of the solver. So let me show you the problem here, okay? If I'm going to grab a cube and I'm going to shift D that, you can see that the cube doesn't overlap. It's intersecting but not overlapping. So none of the edges or faces are overlapping. So cutting this is no problem, right? But what would happen when I'm going to shift D this, right? And then shift Z. So it's going to be on the same plane. So these two faces are on the same elevation in 3D space. So Blender now doesn't know which one is on top, which is why you're seeing this glitch, which is called Z fighting. So when I'm going to Bullion these two now, I'm going to have a problem. I mean, normally I would have a problem if my solver was set to fast. So watch, control minus, and you see everything is fine. But watch what happens when I'm going to change the solver to fast. It's a problem, it's a glitch. It looks like shit, right? I need to move this, kind of nudge it a little bit in order for this to work. So that, you know, the mesh stops overlapping. Now, important thing to understand that the exact solver takes a bit more computing power. So if you have a lot of bevels, a lot of booleans, a lot of arrays, etc. In your scene, you're gonna get laggy, okay? The scene gonna get laggy. So what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that if you don't need to use the exact solver, use fast solver. Which is why I think box cutter by default actually uses the fast solver. You can switch it to exact if you need it, and that's a better way of working. You also have more options here for solvers, but honestly I'm gonna be going to that. It's more in depth. This is like 99% of what you need for regular workflow, so don't worry about it. But yeah, remember that you can use a solver to switch between fast and exact, and you should be using fast if you don't need the exact, okay? Another thing that's a really interesting tip is that you can force geometry onto your mesh. So let me show you an example where forcing geometry onto a mesh actually might be helpful. So let's grab a cylinder, okay? And I'm going to, actually let's increase the number of verts here to like 40 or something. And I'm gonna scale it up, okay? And I'm gonna use loop tools to, it's Control R, to add more loops to create more dense topology. And I'm going to shade it smooth, and I'm gonna add the auto smooth modifier here. Shit's fucking annoying. So now let's say I wanted to cut this with a cube, right? So I'm gonna grab a cube and move it some here, and I'm going to scale it a bit, and then I'm going to grab these two edges and I'm gonna Control B them, and I'm gonna create a bevel like this, all right? And then I'm going to cut it. So let's just shade it smooth and add smooth by angle, and it should be peachy. So now let's select this one and this one and Control minus, okay? If I'm going to apply this mesh, right? And by the way, this Boolean has to be above auto smooth. Order of modifiers is really important. Again, grab this jumpstart course because it will teach you all these, you know, all these important things. If I'm going to apply the modifier right here, watch what's gonna happen, right? I'm gonna have this mesh. Now, if I wanted to, for example, you know, create some kind of a supporting loops to help with shading, it's gonna be extremely difficult to do because Control R will not work since, you know, I have a lot of Addons, and it's gonna be impossible to run loops here. But if I go back with Control Z and I'm going to grab this cutter, right? Go to edit mode and I'm going to introduce loops like this, right? These loops gonna get forced onto the mesh. So watch, if I apply this now, right? And go to edit mode, you see what I mean? So you can force geometry onto your mesh using a cutter. That's a really neat trick, and it can speed up your work. For example, even if you're creating something with Addons or with sub D, doesn't matter, you can force geometry onto your mesh. It's really important and very useful. Now, another trick you can use is solidifying cutters, okay? What the fuck happened to my cavity? There we go. So let's just grab this cube here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make it smaller and move it somewhere here, right? And I'm going to cut this like this. You can solidify cutter to create this kind of a effect. Watch. So I'm going to go here and generate and go to solidify, and now I can actually adjust the size of the solidification. And because it's solidified around the cube, it's going to create sort of like a cube floating inside of the cube. So if I'm going to go to edit mode, and let's just apply this, okay? Go to edit mode and press Alt Z for X-ray. You see that it's floating inside of this. So if I'm going to select this face right on the top, let me just exit this X-ray, and then Control plus to select everything, press P and then selection, I'm gonna have this cube inside of the cube. right? Because I cut it out with solidification and created this kind of a gap around it. So that's a really neat trick that you can use with booleans as well, right? So there's a lot of stuff you can do. Next tip that I can give you, which is really useful, is copying modifiers from one mesh to another, okay? When you're gonna be cutting something, you will need to apply auto smooth to your cutters and shade them smooth, okay? Otherwise they will be leaving kind of like a faceted cut on your other mesh. So what you wanna do is you wanna go here to normals and smooth by angle, and then you want to turn on this ignore sharpness, which will basically shade the mesh smooth, and you want to do the same thing here. So if I wanted to repeat it on every single mesh, it's just too much fucking work. So what you want to do is you want to use this copy modifier, copy attributes menu add-on that we installed. Shift click this one, Control C, and you can copy modifiers. It will copy all the modifiers here. So the smooth by angle and whatever you have on the mesh, which makes things a bit easier. All right, so remember that your cutters need to run this auto smooth, and it needs to be basically shaded smooth. It's really visible on a cylinder, because on a cube you can't really see that, but I'm gonna show you in a cylinder, right? You see that cylinder is so faceted. So watch, if I'm gonna add this auto smooth, right, fuck all happens, but if I'm gonna ignore smooth sharpness, it's gonna get smoothed out. So now it's actually ready to become a cutter. So remember about that, it's important. So to sum it up, you got 4 types of Boolean. You got difference, union, slash or slice, and intersect, and of course insert Boolean, but that one I'm gonna show you how to run this a little bit differently, okay? Another thing is that's important, it's a modifier order. That's fucking important, okay? So watch this. If I'm gonna have this cube here in a Boolean, right, and I'm gonna, add this smooth by angle rubbish, and I'm going to copy that here, okay? So I got 2 of them, right? And I'm gonna slash this one with Boolean. Now you see that modifier stack comes to play, because look what happened to my cube. It looks like dog shit, right? The reason is because it gets auto smooth and then it gets Boolean, right? You need to have Boolean running first and then auto smooth. The same with bevel. If I added bevel before the Boolean, watch what happens, right? So if I'm gonna go here and go to generate in bevel, and I'm gonna put the bevel before the Boolean, first I'm gonna get the bevel, and the Boolean will slash across the bevel. If you wanna have the bevel running all over the mesh, you need to move it up. So watch, I'm going to add 3 segments and lower this down a bit, and also I'm going to ignore sharpness, right? There we go, that's better. And then we're gonna go here and turn this to arc. I'm not gonna be explaining this. I'll explain this in Jumpstart. Get the fucking course, alright? And then you see that we have a problem, okay? It's really cool here, right, on this side, but this looks like shit, because you're beveling first and then you're slashing it. Also, our shading is fucked up here on the bottom, see that? And the reason is because we need to add 1 more modifier. So we're gonna use this add-on here, modifier tools, right? It's gonna allow you to toggle the stack. It's really useful because it allows you to very easily move these around, right? So what we need to add here is 1 more modifier that you're gonna be running on every single fucking mesh, unless you're running sub D, which is called weighted normal, okay? So go to edit and add weighted normal, and now make sure that the Boolean is above bevel, and now everything is peachy, you see that? Okay, so order of modifiers is really important, and you're gonna mess this up, you're gonna have a bad day, all right? So now let me show you how shit is done professionally when you hate wasting time. And for this one, I'm gonna be using Blender 4.0 because I fucking hate 4.1 and above. So I use it only for vanilla bullshit. So let me show you how easy it is to use hard ups and box cutter to, run booleans. And yes, these are paid add-ons. Stop fucking whining. It's you gotta pay for saving your goddamn time. You will save hundreds, if not thousands of hours using these tools. So just stop fucking whinging, I'll slap you. So with box cutter and hard ups installed, you can see them in here. You don't need to, add any cubes, any cutters. You have cutters built into box cutter. So I'll press Alt W to fire it up, and right off the bat, I got a cut, and I'm done. Now, what happened behind the scene is that hard ups actually added auto smooth, shaded my mesh smooth, right? And it actually maintains the correct stack of modifiers. So watch this. If I'm gonna add a bevel, it's gonna jump in a correct place, which is actually under the Boolean. If I'm gonna add weighted normals, it's gonna jump underneath. If I'm gonna add another Boolean, yeah, watch what happens. It goes on the top. I don't have to think about this, because, like I said, tempo's fugitive. That's how intelligent people works. Don't be fucking stupid. Get add-ons. All right. Don't listen to these fucking morons on Reddit who tell you you need to do everything in vanilla Blender. Dude, they're gonna die fucking trying. Okay. Don't be one of these morons. Just be smart. You need to work smart. All professionals use tools, so don't be fucking stupid. So let me now show you how the inset boolean works. It's actually very clever. So in order to switch between different types of booleans in hardops, in box cutter, you just press X and you're fucking done. So watch, this is slash, this is intersect, and this one is inset boolean. So check this out. If I press T, I can actually do that. Doing this in vanilla Blender, you need a fucking PhD in chaos mathematics, right? It's just ridiculous. So that's how easy it is to, you know, do it in here. Now, there's more. You can actually bevel stuff with B. You can rotate these cutters with R, like that, right? You can solidify them like this with just pressing T. You don't even have to open modifier menu. You don't have to do anything. So, you know, cutting is really easy and super fun. So X/done, right? It's just that easy. And this has been maintained for you automatically. You don't have to think. You just work. Is very intuitive and also very artistic because you're focusing on the workflow, not on the technicalities. Just like I don't recommend you start with sub D. I think it's bullshit. You do need to know sub D because it's a tool, but starting with sub D is retarded, and I'll tell you why. It's too technical. You need to focus on creating the shapes, all the tools, menus, shortcuts, then, you know, maintaining the stack of, it's just too much and people give up. So especially artists, you know, we're very intuitive. We like to kind of feel, kind of go with the flow, and it stops you in tracks. It's very frustrating. It's like having a bitching girlfriend. You know what I mean? Nagging, 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 nagging. You know, it's just, you know what I mean? It's just too much, right? You want to send the bitch to the moon. So that's the smart way of working, and that's how you should be working. So once you understand how shit works in vanilla Blender, get the fuck out, all right? Because you're wasting time, right? And don't listen to morons who will tell you that, you know, you need to work in vanilla Blender. They're just lost in fucking Narnia. So that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and hope you learned something useful. Now, I really recommend you get the Jumpstart course if you're new or even intermediate. You'll learn a lot of stuff. There's nearly 100,000 students who enrolled, and they have amazing results, very quick progress. And you know, there's no way really to study from fragmented YouTube videos. You want to follow a structured curriculum because you're simply going to save a shit ton of time. Just like working with add-ons, you want to work smart, not stupid. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.